The Richie Allen Show, live on Talk Radio Europe, Fab Radio International, and DavidIke.com. And now, live from Manchester, England, here is Richie Allen.
Good to have your company tonight. My only guest tonight needs no introduction at all. Now, this is going to be a new monthly feature where, as I mentioned earlier on, he's going to come on and he's going to chat to us about a specific subject, a specific topic that is important, that's important to him and is important for us to hear. Check out his website. It's jordanmaxwellshow.com. That's jordanmaxwellshow.com. He's a fantastic researcher and author. For 50 years now, he's been researching and writing about what's really happening in the world. The nature of reality, religions, the universe, everything and anything you can think about. He's been writing about it. I want to give a big shout out again to freestylehomes.com because they're sponsoring this particular show, and I'm delighted that they are. Let's welcome back to the programme, live from California, the one and only Jordan Maxwell. Jordan, welcome back. How are you?
Well, thank you very much, Richie. Yeah, I'm doing okay, I guess. For 75 years old, I think I'm doing all right.
You're doing all right. You're not going anywhere yet.
So, there's so much to talk about, so much that we could, so many different directions we can, because everywhere you look, there's so much ill-informed, unread, ill-informed stuff going on, and people just don't know how to keep up with the system that we live under. And so my big thing has always been, look at the words, look at the terms, look at what we say and how we view things, because it's a really strange world we're living in right now, and it's getting stranger by the day. Getting stranger
by the day. I don't think anybody would argue with that. There's no doubt about it. Now, this is going to be the first in a series of programs. We're delighted that you're doing it. I wouldn't really have anybody else do it, to be honest. David comes on the show regularly, of course, and David is magnificent. But outside of that, I wouldn't have anybody else take over the programme for a couple of hours. But I'm delighted you're doing it. And I was thrilled when you said that what you wanted to talk about on this particular programme was the meaning of words, hidden meanings of words, how language is used, how the elite or the Illuminati or the hidden hand, how they communicate amongst themselves, and how words are used against us to bamboozle us. It's a marvellous subject, Jordan. I'm going to shut up except to let you know what people are saying on Twitter and to interrupt you for the news and when we have to take a commercial break. But my friend, the floor is yours. I'm absolutely chuffed to bits. There's a word now, Jordan. There's the word, chuffed.
I appreciate that. It's such a large subject because I've been looking at the entire world. We're not talking about just religion and commerce and government, but there's just so much going on. And again, I said this before, but I'll say it again because it bears repeating. If you have a 2-story building and you're going to put a lot of weight on the second floor, then the smart thing to do before you do that is go downstairs with the building inspector and look at the foundation of that floor and see if it's going to hold that kind of weight. And so what you're doing is you're standing under the foundation you're going to build on to see if it's going to hold that weight. So that's where we get our word understanding. So if you don't stand under, you're not going to understand. And so in order to understand the world you live in, you need to go back to the beginnings and see where the words came from, where the ideas developed, and how we got to where we are today. Because too many people just accept things. You know, when you're born into this world, you just accept what your parents tell you. You accept what the teachers tell you. And before you know it, you just become a child of the world that you live in, and never realizing that your world that you live in has been brought about and made over thousands of years of people, ignorant people who don't know, people who do know. So, and so you have come into the world and just accept what you see and accept what you hear, and never realizing for a moment that it's not what you think it is. The world is not what you think it is. The history is not what you think it is. And so there's an idea that has developed over thousands of years, and that is that there are two kinds of stories, and there's two of almost everything. There's two of you. There's two. It's a marvelous idea when you understand there's two of everything. And so there's an exoteric, spelled E-X, exoteric story, and then there's an esoteric, spelled E-S. Exoteric story is the story that everybody knows, everybody's heard, but the esoteric story is the story nobody's heard. Very few people know. And that's reserved for the elite. That's reserved for the wealthy and for the powerful to know, not you. I mean, George Carlin said it best. It's a big club and you ain't in it. And so once you're in the club, then you begin to see what the story really is and who's really running the show and what it's all really about. So that's what I've been trying to do for years, is just tell people and trying to show people that the world is not what you think it is. It doesn't, the words don't mean what you think they do. And so at this point, where do you start? I've always been very interested in theology and religion, but I'm also aware that government, commerce, and things that that we need to live with every day are very important to people today. But let me give you an example of words that we take for granted that you really need to go back and look at. First of all, and I'm just picking this off the top of my head, we have the word anti-Semitic, Semitic. That word, the very word Semitic, is not a legitimate term. It's not a legitimate word. It's a word that we've come to accept and think that we understand what the word Semitic means. But when you hear someone talk about anti-Semitic or someone Semitic or some race of people are Semitic, the very word Semitic is not a legitimate term. And here's why. Because the word Semitic comes from the Old Testament and the Bible. There's a story about Noah and the ark of Noah. And in the story of the old story of Noah and the ark, of course, God tells Noah that he's going to destroy the earth with a great flood, and that Noah should take his sons. He had 3 sons, and those 3 sons had 3 wives. So there's 8 people on the ark, and so Noah built the ark, and the great flood came, and everyone died. And so after the flood was over, God tells Noah and his sons, go forth, multiply, and replenish the earth. And one of the sons' name, the 3 boys, the 3 sons' name was Shem, Ham, and Japheth. This is all in the Old Testament story in the Bible. Shem, Ham, and Japheth were the sons of Noah. Well, now we find out what the elite have known for hundreds of years, is that in point of fact there was no Noah and there was no great world flood, and that the whole story in the Old Testament of Noah and the ark comes from a far more older story of the Gilgamesh epic is what it's called. And the old ancient Sumerians had a story far, far long time ago called the Epic of Gilgamesh, in which in that epic or in that story of Gilgamesh, God tells his favorite prophet that he's going to destroy the world, and they'll go out and build an ark and put all the animals on it and put your family, and then I'm going to destroy the world and you will be safe. Well, that's called the Gilgamesh epic. Then from there, somebody took that story a long time ago and called it the Ark of Noah, Noah's Ark. So now we know, for a fact that Noah did not exist, and there was no Noah's Ark. It's based on a far earlier story called Gilgamesh. But if that's true, and if that's the case, which it is, then that means that there was no Noah, and there was no three sons, because it's based on an older story. And so there was no three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Therefore, if there was no Shem, then there was no Sem. Therefore, there is no Semitic. It's just a name. It's just a word that was used in an ancient story that was retold in the Bible, retold as if it were actual fact. In actual point of fact, it wasn't an actual historical happening. It's a very important story telling you something spiritually, but it's not history. So the point I'm making is that if there was no worldwide flood, which obviously it wasn't, and if there was no Noah and the three sons, then there was no Shem. And if there was no Shem, then that's where we get the word Semitic from, is from Shem. So therefore, the very word Semitic is not really a legitimate term. It's just a word that came from a name that was part of a story, an old ancient story. So today, there is no such a thing as Semitic because it's based on Shem, and there was no Shem. So, and then you get into the word church, for instance. How many people, go to church and have no idea in the world where the word church comes from? Church comes from an old word in the Scottish. The Scottish people give us the word. Actually comes from England, church, but church can be traced back to Scotland, where the word church is basically kirk or kirky. K-I-R-K or K-E-R-K can be spelled different ways. Kirk is if you're a Christian and you're going on Sunday morning to kirk, or in English you're going to church. But kirk is based on Circe, C-E-R-E-S, Circe, which is a goddess in the ancient Babylonian system, Circe or Circe. And so when the Knights Templars went with the crusade, they went into the Middle East to take back Jerusalem for Christianity. The Knights Templars, while there in Jerusalem, also learned the customs and the ideas of the people. And so one of the most important religions during the Middle Ages, during the time of the Crusades in the Middle East, was the worship of a goddess named Circe, and she was referred to as Mother Circe, Mother Circe. So they brought that idea back with them when they came back from the great wars in the Middle East, and so they brought back the idea of Mother Circe, and in Scotland, Mother Kirk or Mother Church. And so that's where the word church comes from. It comes from an old Phoenician, Canaanite, ancient goddess named Circe.
And the German for church is Kirche, or Kirche, they might say. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, but now here's the interesting part, is that in the Greek retelling of this ancient story of Circe, according to the ancient legends in the ancient Greek, that Circe was able to hypnotize. She was able to hypnotize people and bring them into her house, and then she would shut the door behind them, and then magically, through some sort of a high magic, according to the story, she would be able to take their minds away from them so that they were mindless. And then because they're mindless, they couldn't find their way out to save themselves. So she took their minds and locked the door, and then she fed on them. She was able to eat them or feed on them and stay alive. And so she was like a black widow. She was able to bring people in, take their minds away, lock the door, and then feed off of them. That was the story of Mother Circe, or Mother Circe, which is Mother Kirk, which is Mother Church. So people don't realize that the very word church comes from an old ancient goddess that would bring people into her house, magically take their minds from them, and then eat off of them. Well, that's basically what's happening today. There are millions and millions of people going to churches. They have no idea in the world where the religions come from. They have no concept or idea about what they're doing. All they know is they go because everybody else goes, and that's what they've always done. And so they finance and send money to the church and give money to the church. They give their life and their homes and their properties to the church. And they've always, but when you talk to them, they have no idea what's being taught. They have no concept of where ideas have come from. They don't know what the words mean. And so, like the old story was, is that Cersei took their minds, excuse me, and therefore they were not able to find their way out again. Well, that's the same thing we see today. Even in the Christian religion alone, there's like 2,100 different Christian denominations around the world, over 2,000 different denominations and groups of calling themselves Christians. And all of them will tell you that they've got the truth and everybody else is wrong. Well,
true.
As it turns out, we, like the Bible says, by their fruits you shall know them. So, what is the fruitage of 6,000 years of religion? Today, all over the world, people are ignorant, ill-informed, unread, and are being treated like cattle and treated like they are slaves all over the world by the religious leaders who fly around in their $25 million jets. We've got a big case going on in America today with all of these television evangelists making hundreds of millions of dollars a year off of the poor working class people flying around in their jets. And then when you start looking at their personal lives, it's terrible. It's horrible stuff going on. So I'm just saying that when you're going from day to day, look at the words and where they come from. And another example I've given is if you're going to send a package across the country, you can go in your garage and get some rope and tie up the box and ship it, and that should be sufficient to hold it together. But if you're going to take that same rope and go out to the edge of a 10-story building and tie it off and hang on it, if you're going to hang your life on that rope, then you better look at that rope better. It may be all right just to tie a box, but if you're going to hang your life on it, you better check the integrity of that rope. So the same thing is true. If you're going to have a religion, if you're going to be if you're going to vote for something, you better know what you're doing. You better understand what you're involved in and how the stuff works, because it's all man-made. It's all business. It's all corporation. It's all money. And if you don't know what's going on, you will be just like the Bible says, like the ocean, like the waves of the sea. One day you're all for the Republican Party, and then then you find out they're not who you thought they were. Now everybody's going to the Democratic Party, or everybody's going to the Labor Party. Everybody's doing back and forth for thousands of years. Nobody is happy where they are. Why? Because it's all man-made lies, deception, words, misuse of words.
Designed to enslave us, I suppose, Jordan. Designed to keep us unquestioning. It's 22 minutes to the top of the hour. Jordan Maxwell is on the programme. Nobody has been looking into the occult and religious philosophy as long as Jordan has. Check out jordanmaxwellshow.com. He's talking tonight specifically about the hidden meanings of words, where we get our beliefs from, how words are very important when you're talking about that particular subject, and it's terrific to have him back on. Now, I will not be interrupting you. I just have to jump in every now and then. But I
appreciate you doing that.
Oh, yeah, but I don't want to do that. There are tweets with questions totally related to this. You let me know when you want those questions, and I'll give them to you. There's some good questions on there.
Okay, well, let me give you another example of how we in the States accept things without even knowing. There's the very word United States. I can ask anybody today on the streets in the States today to show me the United States on a map, and virtually nobody can do that. Nobody can do that. They will point to North America, to the 48 states, and say, well, there it is. That's the United States. In point of fact, before in law, if you're in a federal court, you need to understand the 48 states together is not the United States, not at all. You need to go back and do some homework, and you'll find out that this is not United States. United States, if you go to a law dictionary and read and what the word United States means, it means this: the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Guam, America's Samoa, Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands, and the District of Columbia. And that's it. The 48 states that you're pointing to, that's not the United States. That's not the United States at all. United States are, again, I'm saying, if you're looking at a law dictionary, the United States means the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, Northern Mariana Islands, and the District of Columbia, period. That's United States.
Now explain that to us, for those of us who've never heard this before. What does that mean exactly?
It means that the United States of America, that was founded back in 1776, after our Civil War, there was no United States of America left after the Civil War. Obviously, if you've got a country where one half of the people are fighting and killing the other half of the people, and there's bloodshed on both sides, it is self-destructive. It's killing itself. It's destroying itself. Well, after the war is over and people are tired of cutting and killing and murdering each other, and after the war is over, I don't know what you've got, but you don't have the country. The country is finished. It's over. Well, with the people that are left, you got to do something. So if the United States of America is no longer an operation at all, because one half the country has been killing the other half, you don't have a United States anymore. So therefore, in the 1870s, in this country, we discovered that we don't have a United States of America anymore. They're not united. Well, then what are you going to do? They're still here, and there's millions of people living here, but it's not united anymore after a civil war. So you had to come up with, and so it was a group of men that came up with an idea, and I think it was an incredible idea. They came up with an idea to form a company, and they called it the United States Corporation. It's incorporated like a company. And the United States Corporation was incorporated in 1870, 1871. They incorporated a company, and basically they said that anyone who worked for that corporation would be called a citizen. And so today, if in America, if they ask you, are you a U.S. citizen, you think because you were born here, that means you're a U.S. citizen. No, it doesn't. You're not. U.S. citizen means that you're an employee of a foreign corporation called United States, which was incorporated. So it's like working for Sears. It's like working for General Electric or General Motors. It's just a privately owned company called United States. And so that United States is actually, as I said, just these the Virgin Islands and Guam, where is where the corporation operates out of. And so there are two, and I started off by saying that there are two of everything here. So there's the United States of America, which is the 50 states, and then there's United States, which is a corporation, which is just on these little islands. So you need to understand that there's two different things going on here. You've got United States, of which we have the president of the United States. Well, he's the president of a company, because all corporations have to have a president. That's, it's part of the law, of corporate law. So we got a president, and all corporations, any corporation has to have a president. They have to have a vice president. Well, that's part of the corporate law. And also in corporate law, you have to have a Secretary of Treasury. That's in corporate law. So we've got that. We got a president, vice president, and Secretary of Treasury. It's a company. It's a corporation. It has nothing to do with the United States of America that was founded back in 1776. That is gone. It's over. That was over when they killed Lincoln. So today, the United States, what we think of as the United States of America, is just a company. It's a corporation. And it's a business,
and
like any other business.
And that makes the citizens, Jordan, whether they know it or not, whether they're unwitting or unwilling or ignorant, it makes them basically employees, like it or lump it. Yeah,
that's precisely it. Everybody here is an employee of a corporation. Very simple. And so there's two of everything here. Now, I've asked people on the street, how many states are in our union here in the States? How many states are here? And the people who are educated will tell you 50. Some people say 48. No, there's 50. Actually, no, there's actually 100 states in our union here in the States. 100, not 50. Why? Because every state is two states. In America, everything is two. There are two states in every state. Like California, you have Cal State, California State. But then you also have the state of California. You've got New York, New York State, or the state of New York. You have Alabama State, state of Alabama. So state of is different than the New York State and state of New York. Totally different words, meaning totally different things. So New York State is New York. That land area we call New York and the people living on that land. But the state of New York is the federal corporation operating in that state. So the state of means the federal operation operating within a particular state. It's called the state of. And so, therefore, the whole what we call the United States is a corporation, and if it's a corporation and you come into this country illegally, across the border illegally, and you are making money in this company, you're making money, but you're not telling the corporation you're here, then they can, because it's a corporation, they can put a lien on you. It's called a mechanic's lien. They put a lien on you so that you have to pay the corporation to stay here and work. You have to pay them, and if you're not paying them, then they will put a lien on you, and therefore you become known as an alien. No, they're not alien. They put a lien on you.
Yeah.
So therefore you are an alien. And so you start breaking down the words and the terms and symbols and what they mean. And then you find out that, as I said, there's two of you. And how does that work? Very simple. There's a public you and a private you. And it works the same way in the UK. There's two of you. There's the public you, which I can deal with in the public. But there's the private you. So suppose you owe me $500 and you don't pay me. I cannot come to your home and lay a hand on you or do anything to you because that's the private you. I can touch you in the public you, but now we have to go to court. We have to have lawyers and all that, and you can do something about it publicly. So there's a public you that we can deal with in the public, but then there's the private you, and that's in your home, and I have no control over that. And so whatever you are doing in your private life is nobody else's business. That's why it's a corporation, and the UK is a corporation. So That's why when I see you with some woman, I say, you know what, that woman that you were with last night, she's bad company.
I told you not to bring that up, by the way. I asked you before the program not to bring that up.
and so I say she's bad company, and you say mind your own business.
Mind your own business. Jordan,
business.
I've been wondering about that expression for years. I mean that. Where did that come from? Mind your own business.
Because your life in the UK is under British Maritime Admiralty law, and so is America under British Maritime Admiralty law. And under Admiralty, all humans are corporations. We are a corporation. You are a corporation. Just like General Electric, you are a corporation. I am a corporation. And therefore, if one corporation is going to do business with another corporation, then you need to get a license because it's a business license. So if you're going to get married, that means your corporation is going to join in business with another corporation. And so if you're going to do that, you got to get a license to get married. Why? Because it's a business. And therefore, if the business doesn't have to work, if the business doesn't work out too well, you're not going to go to God. You're going to court. You're going to bring your house and your car and your money, because after all, it's just business. Bottom line is it's the business of living. And so therefore, anything you do requires a license and a permit, because you're not free. You know, people like to talk about Americans being free. We've never been free. We're not free. We have something called liberty. We have a statue of liberty, not statue of freedom. There's a big difference. Liberty is what a sailor gets when he pulls into port. He asks the captain if he can go ashore, and if the captain says he can, he may not. But if he says you can go, then he's giving you the liberty to go out. But but at the same time, he tells you when to be back, and you better be back. And so you don't have freedom as soon as you park the ship. You don't have freedom to go where you want. You ask permission. And if you get permission, then you have liberty to go. You don't have freedom, period. And so that's why the Statue of Liberty is in New York. Statue of Liberty is on an island in water, because it's a maritime admiralty term in business. So you just need to understand what these words mean and what the symbols mean, because it's not anything like you think it is.
Jordan, we've got 5 minutes before we have to break off for news. Yeah. Can I just ask you, when we come back after news, then maybe we'll get into some of the questions from our listeners on Twitter, of which there are many, but they're all on point, which is great. They're all on words. Are there people, Jordan, within banking and within politics who understand this as well as you do?
Not very many, because I've talked with bankers and they look at me like I'm crazy because they've never heard such a thing before, and I know why. And I tell them, I know why you don't know, because all you've done is gone to college and gone to university to learn what to do, but you don't learn where it came from. Well, the same thing if you're going to work in a car factory or in a factory. They're just going to teach you what to do to earn a living. They're going to teach you your job. You don't need to know the rest of the story about who owns the company and how it was founded. All you need to know is how to do your job. That's all you need to know. And so this is on a need-to-know basis. And they figured today the people working don't need to know. You just learn your job, you learn what you can do, what you can't do, and don't ask any questions. Just go along to get along, or you're going to get fired. So most people today don't
know.
At.
So do you know what that tells me then? That tells me that a lot of people come on programs like mine, and they've spoken to you over the years, and they talk about the 1%. There's the 1% of the elite, and the rest of us are 99%. I've begun to believe over the last couple of years, Jordan, that 1% is being very generous. It might only be a couple of hundred people out of 7 billion people. It might be less than that. What do you say to that?
Well, if you just remember, even in the story of Noah and the ark, there was only 8 people that were saved. And then the Bible has Jesus saying, just as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the coming of the Son of Man. Well, if there's only 8 people saved the first time, just going by what the Bible says, then that means that there's only going to be what the Bible calls a remnant. The word is remnant. It's being used in the scriptures, and it talks about a remnant of people. Well, a remnant is the people that are left over. People that are left over, the handful of people who are actually left after a great catastrophe is called a remnant. Well, that's what's happening today. The world is a great catastrophe, but the only people that are getting it are just what is the Bible calls a remnant, just a small, tiny fraction of the people who really understand what the world is and how it works. But they are very small few, and usually nobody wants to hear them anyway, because like the movie said, you can't handle the truth. So I've found that that's the case for me. So many people, don't want to hear the real truth, and so I've discovered too. If we have the moment, I'd like to make the point that I've discovered that people will always support what they want. They will not support what they don't want. So you will buy food that you like to eat, not what you don't want to eat. You'll buy clothes that you want to wear, not something you don't want to wear. And you'll go to a movie or be entertained by what you want, not what you don't want. So obviously, people will financially support and support in any other way what they want. They will not support what they don't want. And if we've learned anything from history, we've learned in 7,000 years of history, the one thing that generally speaking people don't want is the truth. That's the one thing they're not going to support. They don't want to hear the truth. Like the movie said, what are you looking for? And the kid said, I'm looking for the truth. And Michael said, you can't handle the truth. So I've discovered that is exactly true today, that people, generally speaking, do not want to hear the real truth. They're not up for it. They want to believe what they want to believe. They want to hear what they want to hear. That's why the professionals today, the professional clergymen, they tell the people what they want to hear. And that's why the churches are filled with millions of people who will give millions of dollars to their religious leaders. Why? Because they're hearing what they want to hear.
They're hearing, they're basically having their opinions and their beliefs affirmed to them. And anything that contradicts it is something they're not interested in. Jordan, we're going to take a wee break now. Okay. It's going to be for about 9 minutes, 8.5 minutes. Gives you a chance to go and get a cup of coffee or a glass of water. I'll briefly disconnect from you, but I'll reconnect on the other side of the hour. Marvellous stuff, my friend. Talk to you very shortly. Great stuff.
Bye-bye.
The brilliant Jordan Maxwell, of course, is staying with us for the rest of the programme. Thanks again to freestylehomes.com. That's freestylehomes.com for bringing this particular show to us. Jordan will be with us every month, and it's wonderful stuff. This is mind-blowing. Now, if you hashtag Richie Allen Show on Twitter and press enter, you will see the tweets of other people, and you will see that they are legion. So when we get into the second hour, I'm not going to pick and choose the comments and the questions to Jordan. I'm just going to get through as many of them as I possibly can. But don't be offended if I don't read your question to him. There are so many of them. A quick break for news. This is Monday's Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com, brought to you today, the Jordan Maxwell Show, by freestylehomes.com. Jordan Maxwell is with me. Check out jordanmaxwellshow.com. For the moment, that's the only website that you should be using to find out more about Jordan. That's jordanmaxwellshow.com. This particular program brought to you in association with freestylehomes.com. Welcome back. Now, before we get into your tweets, your comments and your questions on words, Jordan, you've got something you want to say specifically.
Well, I was going to say, even our the commercial terms we use in business, because we were talking about business. Well, if you look up in a law dictionary, look up the word commerce, and you will see that the word commerce actually means the same as Congress. Congress and commerce come from the same, it's basically the same word. And Congress in a law dictionary, or commerce in a law dictionary, has to do with sex. Sex is called commerce or Congress. There's co-res and then there's Congress. It has to do with sexual reproduction. Now, a long time ago in the Middle East, we're talking about thousands of years ago in the Middle East, the people who were roaming around the Middle East in boats, and they were mariners and trading all around the Mediterranean. They developed an idea, a concept that was developed over a period of time, and it was based on the idea that business and commerce was based on the idea that there's only two things on the earth: land and water. That's it. The earth is nothing but land or water. So you have to have two sets of laws, one for the land and one for water. Well, we hear all the time that term, this and that is the law of the land. Well, that's the law of the land. Law of the land means law that is pertinent on land, that is it has to do with land, while law of the water is different. Law of the water is called mer. M-E-R is the name for the ocean or the sea, is M-E-R, mer, like mermaid. It has to do with the ocean. And so all of our commerce is based on water. Well, you're 75 to 80% water yourself. And so the whole idea of the law of water is the law of commerce. And so think about all the words that you use every day in commerce that apply to water, not land. For instance, we say things like money goes through your hands like water. No, money is water. It's liquidity. It's a liquid asset. And we say things like you are washed in debt, or if you go to court, you're in hot water. And now because you're in hot water, you need to be bailed out. So you're going to have to make bail. Or you're flooded with bailout money, flooded. Your bank account has dried up. Why? Because you have an offshore account and you're drowning in debt. And so we run a tight ship.
It's amazing.
And so you're making waves. Don't rock the boat.
Yeah.
Right? And so we want to know if you are laundering money in the mainstream, and the bank will have to levy your debt. And so the question is, are you on board? Because this is a tight ship we run. Are you on board, mate? That's where it comes from, mate, because it's on board the ship. So one day your ship will come in, and government is, of course, called statesmanship. So the idea is, are you on board on the citizenship? So with the citizenship, we have scholarship and sportsmanship and courtship and hardship and heirship and friendship and censorship and companionship and partnership and dictatorship and leadership, membership, and you can even buy a car at a dealership. And if you got a lot of money, you can buy a lot of cars at a fleet price.
At a fleet price, a fleet of cars. I tell you what, Jordan, you're blowing my mind here. A lot of this is new to me.
You have to get it on sale. And so, as I said, the water is mer, M-E-R, and the sea, water is the sea, and it's mer, like mermaid, okay? And so we say things, especially in the English world, we say that the oceans and the seas are enchanting. Songs have been written and movies have been written about the enchanting sea. So enchanting is of course a mesmerizing or enchanting. And what is enchanting? The sea, mer. And so now you have something called a mer chant. And the mer chant loves to hear the musical notes of business. He's in business. So the mer chant is enchanting you to buy. And so it's a whole story of words and terms and commerce and government and law that most people have never thought about. They have no idea in the world. You are you are a corporation. You, under maritime British law, you are a company. As I said, you need to understand these things, because then when you get into court and when you're doing business, all of a sudden you find out this is very, very old and very ancient, and you need to understand the words and the terms and what you're getting yourself into. Because under Roman law, there was a maximum under Roman law. One of the things the Romans said about law, they said, quote, "Let him who wishes to be deceived be deceived." That's an article of law under Rome. If you want to be deceived, then be deceived. So what the Romans were saying, if you're so stupid as to go through life and not know what you're doing, and you want to be deceived, then go ahead, be deceived. And so, even the more ancient people said, when in relation to the heavens, they said that all life was being directed by the stars. And that goes back 6,000 to 8,000 years ago. We know that a life on the earth was being directed by the stars. Well, man has always navigated himself around the earth by the stars. So the idea was put forth that in the English language, star in the Old English was A-S-T-A-R, astar. And astar is what we take the A off and just call it star. No, it's astar. And so the idea was, in the ancient world, if you don't understand the astars in the heavens, then your life is going to be a disastar. And this is exactly what's happening today. People live their lives in a disaster. Why? Because they don't understand the heavens. They don't understand the words, the terms, the planets, how the universe is put together. They don't understand how business works, religion, commerce, government. They just don't get it. And they don't understand that this has been around, this whole thing has been around for thousands of years being perfected. And if you're going to live here, what you really need to do is back up and find out how much you don't know about the world you live in. It's an incredible story about how we do not understand how things work anymore. We live under something called, in the Western world, we live under something called cemetery law. All land is under cemetery law. Why? The word cemetery comes from the word cement. Everything is cement in a cemetery. And so we all live in a cement jungle, it's called. We live in cities, and it's all cement. So we're living in a cemetery law. Because all of our dwellings are cement, and so if you're living under cemetery law, and there's a certain kind of law on the earth called cemetery law, and if you're living under it, that means you're living in a cemetery. And if you're living in a cemetery, but you're walking and breathing and moving around and operating in a cemetery, you're a zombie. And so that's why today we got movies and TV shows talking about zombies, because that's what the masters, that's what the elite see the peoples of the nations as. We're all a bunch of zombies.
Mindless consumers.
That's all we are, is just consumers. And because we live in cement palaces, we live in cement homes, and so we live under cement laws, so we're walking around in a cemetery. We're zombies. So again, it's just words and terms and how the world really works. That is fascinating once you start getting into the dark side of the way the world really works. And that's what I've been trying to get people to listen to for all these years. So
it's brilliant, Jordan. It's absolutely fantastic. It's 17 minutes past the hour. Jordan Maxwell is going to be with us until right up to the end of this hour, to the end of the programme. I'm just going to read out a few comments now. Some of them are questions, some of them are comments. You can follow what other people are saying by just putting in hashtag Richie Allen Show on Twitter, and you can read everybody else's tweets and see what people are saying as well. Loads and loads of comments about this, massive interest in it. Najat says, inside the eyes of the Mona Lisa, researchers discovered hidden codes. Are there occult messages everywhere? We might get into that in a future programme, Najat, but it is interesting. Martin Oakes is on to talk about maritime law. Jordan has just gotten into that. There's been a number of questions from listeners about Washington, D.C., the City of London and the Vatican, and questions being asked, Jordan, to go back to what you said before the break, before the news, are Washington, D.C., London and the Vatican independent states, independent countries? Well, we know about the Vatican anyway, but Washington and D.C. and London, what do you think?
Well, that's true, that they are corporations, they're companies, and they are incorporated together, and it goes back to the British East India Company and the founding of the corporation called the United States of America, because we were called originally, when there were 13 colonies, they were originally called 13 companies. And that's why, if you're in the Marine Corps, well, I said that we are corporations. Every human being is a corporation, according to British law. Every human is a corporation. Well, when you die, we say you're a corpse, because you're a defunct corporation, so you're a corpse. And so, again, there's just so much to deal with on this level of talking about commerce. And then when you get into religion, that's a whole nother story about the use of words and terms and symbols, and what those terms and symbols really mean, where they actually came from. And
we touched on that earlier with the Ark story. Speaking about Andrea has asked this. This is interesting now, and then I want to get to a question by Richard. Andrea says, would Jordan say that the Federal Republic of Germany belongs to the USA, for example? I think it does, she says, at least according to the Marshall Plan. The Federal Republic of Germany. What does that mean, Jordan? Federal Republic of Germany.
Well, that's a whole different subject from what I was talking about. But it does connect to because the whole word republic is a very interesting term. It has the first two letters as R-E. Re means to do it again. Then you have public. So to have a republic means to do it again. And so it has to do with a venue where something is happening, as opposed to where it's happening now is called a venue. So you have a change of venue. But if it's dealing with money, going from one place to the next, you have revenue. Or revenue. Revenue is revenue, to move money from one place to the next. So when you break down words, and I'm not really that well informed on this general subject. It's just something I've been listening to the experts over the many, many years. So if I bring anything to the table of any value, it's because I've been in the company of all of the great minds and all of the brilliant minds that have been studying this stuff for years, because I always say, and I'm saying it again, I'm not the world's foremost authority on anything. I've just been in the company of extraordinary minds all my life, and listening to incredibly brilliant people talking about stuff that most people in the world will never even know exists. And that's why I'm fascinated with how much people don't know.
It's incredible.
It's all there. It's all there.
And the number of listeners have tweeted that, Jordan. They've said that exact thing, that this is so in your face, that it's almost untrue. It's almost like not being able to see the woods for the trees, basically. It's right there for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Angela says, we live inside a corporation with its own rules called policies. They are not laws of a sovereign, but in fact a crown pretender. And I'm listening to you, Jordan, and I've been listening intently since we started. And I think it's just occurred to me, a word like policy. Now I know what the word poly can mean. It can mean many. And seas can mean seas. So has policies come from many seas?
Well, policy, look, it goes back to the difference between law and a policy. A large corporation that you may be working for, their policy is that you have to show up at work at a certain time, you take off for lunch at a certain time, and you go home at a certain time, and you do what they tell you to do, not what you want to do, but they do what they tell you and give you to do, and they own you for 8 hours. When you're at work, they own you. They're the boss, not you. And so they have certain policies. Now, when they tell you something that you have to do and tell you not to do something, that's not law from God. That's not government law. No, it's just their policy. That's the way they run their shop and the way they run their business. And here's the way they run it. So if you like working for them, then do what we tell you. If you don't, then go someplace else. It's just our policy. So therefore, we have politicians that make policy. And the policy of the politicians has to be backed up with something. So we have police. Police back up the policy of the politicians. So the politicians merely work for the corporation. So actually, you're talking about the city of London, the corporation. It's a company, and then they don't issue laws from God or the state. No, it's just their policy. So their policy says that you can't park here, and you go to work at this time, and you go to work at that time, and you do this, you do that. That's not law from God. It's not the edict of God. It's just their policy. And so that's what we have today, police. The whole world is in a police state. We call it a police state because it's run by policy. General Motors has a policy, and Ford Motor Company has a policy, and Russia has a policy. Everybody's got a policy. And so everybody has to be in conformity to that policy. Why? Because everyone's being paid. And so it's called the Uniform Commercial Policy. And therefore, anybody who works for the corporation has to wear a uniform. Why? Because it's uniform commercial business, uniform. So you have to wear a police uniform, a fireman's uniform, or a waitress uniform. You have to wear a uniform. You go into church, school, you have to wear the church uniform. They want everybody to be uniformity. They want everybody to be in uniform. Why? Because it's just a business. The church is a business. Your government's a business. And as a matter of fact, what you do personally is a business, just none of my business. And so all life on the earth is a business. It's money changing hands, people making deals. Big deals, little deals, small deals, lying deals, but it's still just business. And that's why the mafia says, we have to kill you. Not, personally, I like you, but it's just business. You made a deal, you didn't pay, and so somebody's got to do something about it. So it's just business. So the way the world works, it's a business. And we don't understand that certain countries make a lot of money off of another country. Well, they got to put that money back. I mean, America spends billions buying oil from the Arabians, but the Arabians are holding our money that they made. Well, they got to give us back that money because that's where it comes from, is from America. So they got to give America back its money. So how did they do that? Well, it's just business. They come over here and buy everything. They come over here and buy huge hotels and buy corporations and buy cities. The Arabs come over here and just buy and buy and buy. And people say, well, that's terrible. The Arabs are going to own this. They're going to own that. No, they have to put the money back to give it to us. It's our money. So we give them something. They give us oil. We give them a hotel. It's just business. So it's a real interesting story about how words and terms and commerce and religion, all of this is connected behind the scenes, but most people don't know that.
Jordan, we've had a very good question from Colin, who's listening in Dublin, Ireland. And Colin asks, do these games, these word games, these games that obviously the elite have been playing with words, are they exclusive to the English language? And then he says this is really synchronistic to him because he was only talking about this subject today to a friend and he didn't understand or didn't realise we were going to be talking about it on the programme. So is it an English thing or would it work in any language?
Well, the concepts, and this is what I was trying to talk about today on a different show. There are concepts. And then there are words, the etymology of words, but not always is the etymology of words important if you're dealing in conceptual ideas, concepts. And one of the most important areas that you can see that point, that etymology of words is important only in certain subjects, while on the other hand, conceptual ideas are important in politics and religion, and the etymology of the words are not important. A classic example of that is that in religion, there are certain things I believe in the New Testament. For instance, the New Testament story of Jesus is a metaphor. It's a symbolic story. And if you're reading it as history, you're going to be part of the Christian world today, which today has over 2,100 different Christian religions and different orders of Christianity throughout the world, 2,100 different Christian religions, and all of them feel that they have the correct truth, and find out that no, it's a misunderstanding of words. So forget the words and go look at the concepts and see where these words have come from. And that's a whole story. It needs to be discussed later in another show. But and I don't want to get into it now because it's very depressing to some people to hear how their religion is basically a conceptual idea developed thousands of years ago in commerce. And the words and terms in religion and in churches today are commercial terms. And, when you go into a church, it's like going to a show. And the very word theology comes from a Greek word the, T-H-E. T-H-E or T-H-E-O, theo, is a Greek word for God. That's why today we have something called a theater. You go into a theater. The is God. And so the idea is a theater is a God show. It's a show about God. It's called a theater. And so churches are like a theater. You go in, you pay money, you go in, sit down, and there's a show, and it teaches you something about God. It's called a church. And and then when they pass the plate, you're paying for the show, God's show. But the problem with that is when you go to a movie or go to a theater or a show, you're not learning anything. You're just being entertained. You're just being given something to entertain you, to teach you, but you're not really learning anything. And that's one of the problems I've had with the churches all my life. Is I wanted to learn something in every church I went to. I went to so many different churches when I was growing up as a kid. I'd go to different churches with different friends, hoping to find some church that's actually going to explain to me what the words mean, what the symbols mean, where all of this stuff come from. And nobody talks about what I'm talking about in church. Nobody. So if you want to find out what's really going on, you're going to have to start doing some homework on your own. And that's what I've been trying to do, is help people who want to know. Because I'm not interested to be happy in church sitting in something called a pew. I don't want to be given a show. I want to learn. I want to know. This is why Christians are referred to as believers. When you go to a new church, they ask you, how long have you been a believer? I don't want to be a believer. I want to know. I want to be able to prove something. So you need to educate yourself if you're going to live in this world. That's all I can tell you.
Do you believe Jesus Christ is your Savior? It's the first thing they ask you. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. We're going to pause. It's 28 minutes to the top of the hour. Then there's an interesting question from Emlyn, which is related to what Jordan was talking about previously. Emlyn asks about the Secretary General of the United Nations, and then asks, is Jordan aware, does the United Nations have a president? A president which might be hidden. Jordan might answer that after the break. Very quick break. Back then with more questions and more points. These things always fly by. That's the way it goes, and there are lots and lots of questions and emails. We're not going to get to them all, but this is a wonderful introduction to this subject tonight with the great Jordan Maxwell. Back in a couple of seconds.
Do you want to know how to take your power back? How to transform your relationships, disempowering emotions and addictive behaviors into your soul's gifts of profound love and healing? Visit livingasyoursoul.com for free in-depth articles, online workshops and much, much more to find out how to live as your soul and master your power of love and healing. LivingAsYourSoul.com for your soul solutions.
NeonNettle.com, a new voice in alternative media. For unfiltered news at your fingertips, visit NeonNettle.com, the UK's #1 alternative news site. In association with The Richie Allen Show. NeonNettle.com.
Do you have money problems? Do you want to avoid vaccines, antidepressants, painkillers, statins, chemotherapy or worse? Sincerely, do you want to know why you've had a miscarriage? Fluoride and chemtrails calcify your spiritual pineal gland. Why don't they want you to become spiritual? Did you know birthmarks are from past lives, as are many allergies and phobias? Are you risking reincarnation by not knowing your soul contract? Do you want to get to the bottom of your spiritual experiences, including accidents? For the solution, visit healingking.com. That's healingking.com.
Welcome back to the programme. 26 minutes to go to the top of the hour. We've got Jordan for about 22 more minutes. Let's get straight back into it. And Jordan, that question from Emlyn, which I'm just scrolling down now to make sure I've not lost it, was about the Secretary General of the United Nations. Emlyn asked, who's the president then of the UN? I've heard, says Emlyn, that this is a secret and it's hidden. Has Jordan come across that?
No, I haven't, because I'm not interested in the UN, but I'm sure that what he's talking about is going to be very interesting. I've just never looked into it. Obviously, there has to be the same kind of structure because it's a corporation. It's a world corporation, but it's a corporation nonetheless, and so it probably does have a president or someone acting in that capacity, but I've never looked into it myself. So
no worries. Yeah, no worries, Jordan. Now, Angela was back on to ask us, can you ask Jordan why you swear on a Bible in a Crown Court, which obviously you do. Why do you do that? To me, you know, if somebody asked me that question, I'm not Jordan Maxwell, of course, I would say, in my naivety now, Jordan, I would say because they believe that I'm less likely to lie in the presence of God. Hence, they've asked me to swear on the Bible, but I would be wrong.
No, that's exactly right. That's precisely the point, that you are swearing before God. But, you know, there's a big story there that I don't even know if we should get into it about swearing in a court, because that's really an interesting subject. To go into a court and testify. You know, when you have to testify, or Christians are giving their testimonial, or children when they're in school get a test, they have to go through a test, or testifying, testimonial. All of that word testify goes back to testicles. That's where it comes from. The male testicles, because in the ancient Egyptian system, in ancient Egypt, which was picked up by the Phoenicians, the Canaanites, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, and given to the Greeks, and the Greeks gave it to the Romans, and Romans gave it to us, goes all the way back thousands and thousands of years ago, where if you are going before a court, say 5,000 years ago, if you're going before a court, and like I said, it goes back to Egypt, you hold your testicles in your hand when you are testifying. And the idea is that if you are caught lying, you know what that means. And
wow,
so,
right.
Yeah, and
that's
so
incredible.
That's where it comes from, is to testify or testimonial means that you hold your testicles when you are when you're commenting in a court. So if we catch you lying, guess what's going to happen? So, you know, we say the same thing today when you go to court. So
yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah. I just imagined there was, you know, some deeper meaning to actually swearing on the Bible, because maybe in a future program, you might get into, you know, what's in the Bible. I mean, you hinted at that earlier on. Jordan is going to come on every month and chat to us. This month it's brought to us by freestylehomes.com. And which is terrific. We thank them, of course, for doing that. Jordan will be picking subjects and topics of great interest And this has been of huge interest tonight. There's been a massive interest in this. As I said, if you want to go on Twitter, basically, all you got to do is put in hashtag Richie Allen Show, and you will see, first of all, the absolute masses of tweets from people, and basically what other people are saying and the questions. Ger came on to say, what's the meaning of the word denial? As in, for example, Holocaust denial. Does it mean to deny against your better judgment, that you're denying against, your better knowledge, your better judgment? Denial, Jordan.
Well, I'm not really sure because I've never looked that up. I'm not really sure.
Neither have I. No, there's an old joke, isn't there? There's an old joke. If somebody's in denial, they're like a crocodile in Egypt. They're in denial.
Of course, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. It's just and I suppose to ultimately do it justice, you would want massive amounts of time to cover this subject.
Oh, good, yes.
There's no doubt about that.
And the other problem, too, with that is if you really want to cover a subject thoroughly, you're going to run into a problem, and that is it's going to be offensive to people. I've told you that before. You've got to be very careful about what you say in public because you don't want to offend people. I'm trying to be a teacher. I'm not trying to offend. But sometimes when you get into words, like I said, when you get into church, or you get into testify, you get into sexual commentary, sexual terms and words, and then you begin to look at. It's really interesting because you're going to get into territory that people have never heard before. And a classic example is like Moses. We could do a 3-hour show just on Moses. There's all kinds of stuff about Moses I'd like to talk about, but the one thing is that Moses comes down from the mountain with the tablets of stone, with the law. Well, and actually, we remember the movies about Moses coming down with the big tablets of stone, and of course he sees the Israelites still worshiping the old the bull,
the calf, the golden calf,
calf. The golden calf, which is, of course, the sun in the age of Taurus the bull, and the sun in the constellation of Taurus is the golden calf. But and he throws down the law and he breaks the law. So now he's a lawbreaker. And so he broke the law. Well, actually, the Bible doesn't say that it was tablets. It says it was 2 round stones that could be held in one hand. 2 round stones that could be held in one hand. They were called the tablets of the law, or the written stones, written on the stones. And so they were called the stones of the testimony. Is one term that the Jews used. They were testimonial stones, but there were 2 round stones, and they were written around the circle. They were written around the stones. And so I think about that. It's the testimony of the stones, and Moses comes down he's holding 2 round stones in his hand, not big stones, no, 2 round ones. And, now that begins to get into some totally different kind of thinking about the law and about the stones of the law and about the testes and testicles. And now you're getting into dark and deep secrets of the Jewish religion that's not supposed to be talked about in public. And then if you're talking about that, you might as well get into the dark hidden secrets that Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and the Raiders of the Lost Ark and all that kind of stuff. Now you're really getting into some really interesting dark secrets that Hollywood is making and putting into movies and to different religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all 3.
Why, Jordan? Are there? I asked you this before. Are there people within the corridors of real power? Forget about prime ministers and presidents. We know, you and I, they don't have any power. They don't do anything. But those who really pull the strings, are some of these... Because you just touched on something there. You see clues and hints within films and within TV dramas, which kind of give you a glimpse onto what might be really going on. Is somebody somewhere trying to educate people, Jordan? Is there a concerted effort? Yeah.
I think so, because movies like what is it, Eyes Wide Shut? Probably is one of the most important and powerful movies ever to come out of Hollywood ever. It's called Eyes Wide Shut. And Stanley Kubrick, who was well known as an absolute genius in his work, ended up dying because of that movie being made. He died because of that movie. And most people who watch that movie have no idea in the world what Stanley Kubrick was telling you in a movie. But he died trying to tell you. So go back and watch that movie, Eyes Wide Shut, and for the first time, think about the real world you live in, because that's the real story right there. A man died to give that to you.
And you've always said that. You've always said that you believed his death was not natural, that it was very suspicious. You've said that to me before,
yeah,
way back.
But I've talked to people on the inside who tell me. I mean, I've talked to a lot of important people on the inside of Hollywood. Incidentally, the old ancient Druids used to have Druids are still active in Europe today. Well, of course, they're active here too. But among the old ancient Druidic system that existed way before the Roman Empire did, the Druidic system had a very important symbol for power, and that was a magic wand. So Druids used a magic wand. And so magic wands were always made out of the wood of a holly tree. So it's made out of holly wood. And once you understand that it's a Druidic symbol, holly wood, you begin to see it's a whole symbol wrapped up in entertainment, Hollywood. Why holly? Why was the wood of the holly tree important? Well, because holly, first of all, is very, very strong wood. If you're going to saw it, you're going to saw it twice as hard to cut holly because it's very strong wood. And if you peel off the bark, it's white. And so the ancient peoples in Europe said, well, it's white and it's very strong. Well, that's us. We're white and very strong. So the holly became important to the Druidic peoples of Europe. And today we have Hollywood in Los Angeles. So all of this is very interesting, but I want to throw this in too because we only have a few moments left. I have learned from my attorney, and I'm still going through this terrible court case, but I've learned a few things. And one important fact is that since there's two of you, there's the legal you and then there's the personal you, I have discovered lawfully that that what you say in public, government can do something about it, because government is in what you call entitled, or they're empowered. Government is empowered to protect the public. So whatever you're doing that's in the public domain, government is watching and can do something about it. But in the private domain, government has no jurisdiction in private. So if you belong to a cult or a little group in a church, you can say anything you want in that church, or do and say anything that that you want, because that's private. It's just in a small church. But you can't go out on into the public on television and say the same thing. It can't be done. So now you're talking to the public. So I'm going to take my work. I'm tired of being threatened and chided and called names. I'm tired of the attacks on my work. So I'm taking my work private. And so while I am happy to do radio shows, I'm not going to discuss important things that could get me in trouble that are not supposed to be known. I'm going to do a private research group. And so if you want to join my private research group, I will be dispensing information, continually through the emails or whatever, all kinds of documents and subject matter that nobody's ever dealt with before, or things that have been right in front of you never saw before. But I'm not going to do it with the public, because I've had enough problems dealing with government and talking about these kind of things in public. So I'm starting a private research club, And it's just going to be a hodgepodge of all the stuff that I've been looking at for years. I want to dispense it to those people who want to know. So if you just go on my website to Jordan Maxwell Show, SHOW, jordanmaxwellshow.com, you will see above the head, above on the top page, you'll see Research Society. Just click on that and put your email in, and probably within the week, I think within this week, we're going to go live with the Research Club and with the Research Society. So if you want to be a part of it, it's probably going to start about Friday or Saturday. This coming Friday or Saturday, we're going to go online. So if you want to be a part of it, just go on to Jordan Maxwell Show and go to Research Society and put your name in and put your email, and we'll get back to you in about a week from now.
I've just tweeted that out there now, Jordan. Thank you. Yeah, all you've got to do is give Jordan your email address and away you go. There were so many other questions about different words. Devlin was on to ask about paintings a town red when we feel blue. Why are we green with envy? That sort of stuff. Fascinating questions. I think
that's right. Yeah, it is.
Do you want to get into that? I mean, we've probably only got about 4 minutes time. Do you want to make that the last little bit of information before we do get?
What I'd like to say is that your life is really being affected by unseen forces, and I am totally convinced from all of my years of listening to the experts and seeing the evidence that our lives are being orchestrated, like an orchestra leader leading an orchestra. It's being orchestrated, and we don't realize how so many things that go on in our life are just routine, and we don't even think about it. And so you need to keep in mind that there's a spiritual presence on this earth, a very powerful spiritual, unseen presence on this earth that spiritual people have talked about for thousands of years, but it's true. There is some kind of a spiritual presence on this earth, but today we see it as very, very evil. People are doing incredibly bad things, evil things, and then they tell us, then we hear them say, well, I was told to do that, and what caused you to do it? Well, somebody told me to do it. So I'm just saying, be very careful about what you join. Go back and start doing some research on whatever it is you belong to, whatever society or church or group or mosque or synagogue, it doesn't matter. The world is laying in the power of a dark force. It's in all religions, it's in government, it's in law, it's in commerce. We are living in a very powerful, dark time in the history of the human race. And we are rushing headlong now into oblivion. We're rushing as a human race into some dark, dark places that are coming on this earth. And the reason why is because the people have no knowledge. They can't do anything about anything because they don't have any knowledge about what's going on. So, people want to make changes. You can't make a change. You don't even know what's happening.
That's right, Jordan,
if you want to make a change, you better educate yourself.
You're not scaremongering. You've never done that. It's more public. It's more citizens' advice, really. It's more important advice to people. It's not scaremongering. I think you ultimately believe, as I do, that these the evil hidden hand or the elite, whichever name anybody wants to give them, their time is numbered. Whether they realise it or not, it is. But people do have to educate themselves because, while we don't, and while their time might very well be numbered, the fact is terrible things will keep happening until people start, first of all, understanding this stuff, but then communicating it to one another, directing people to Jordan Maxwell's website, jordanmaxwellshow.com, directing people to davidike.com, having groups, meeting people, getting out of your house and speaking to people about these things instead of watching the idiot box and the bread and circus routine. It's hugely important. It is, really. We're just about up on time on this. This is going to be a terrific series, this. I'm looking forward to early next month, early October, doing the second episode, Jordan. It's marvellous, this. We've had a huge response to it tonight. I'm also reliably informed that your website is getting an enormous amount of traffic right now, and some people are finding it difficult to get onto it. Because once that's good. That's actually a good thing. Because once we tweet it out, there's a link to the newsletter to the Research Society. A lot of people are jumping on there, and that's really, really good. That's really important. So,
because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour out all kinds of stuff on that Research Society that I would not talk about in public. I've got lots of stuff. I'm always very fearful of talking about things I'm not supposed to in public. So it's going to be a lot of stuff on that Research Society once we get it going.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
I'll be a part of it.
I'll be joining later on when I get off air. So that's JordanMaxwellShow.com. Again, a huge thanks to FreestyleHomes.com for sponsoring this particular program. I think they want to do it ongoing, but they don't have to if they don't want to, because there is other interest. I've had a couple of businesses, good businesses, ethical businesses, have come forward and said that if Freestyle Homes don't do it next month, they will do it instead. Jordan Maxwell didn't ask for a penny. Never asked for a penny. It was our idea. Aaron Callan said, look, let's find a sponsor and give Jordan a few bucks because he has legal bills. But Jordan never asked for a single penny. It's very important you understand that. Jordan, you are the last person that I will have spoken to in the first year of the Richie Allen radio show on davidicke.com and on Fab Radio and Talk Radio Europe, because tomorrow is the exact first birthday of the programme. David Icke is on with me tomorrow. How cool is that? You do the last show of the year and David Icke comes on with me tomorrow. It was an honour, my friend. I thoroughly enjoyed that. It's opened my eyes to a lot of things, and I'm sure it's opened the listeners' eyes and minds as well. You have the last word, my friend, and we'll wrap it up.
Okay, and thank you. And tell David I said hello.
I will indeed.
Okay, Dave. Bye-bye.
Bye for now, Jordan. Great stuff. Jordan Maxwell on the line to us there from his home in California. And I will, I'll give you plenty of notice before he comes on again what he's going to be talking about, the subject matter and the topics he's going to be covering.